My name is Russell Spatz. I'm an alcoholic. So let's try to figure this thing. I haven't necessarily had a drink since January
25th.
Thank you. 25th. This gives you sort of a premonition as to how this thing is going to go. January. Oh yeah, I listened for an hour to that guy who can't remember anything. January 25th, 1981. Right? Yeah, so I'm in my 44th year of sobriety, and it's good to be here, and I hope I say something that helps somebody. It'll probably help me, but that's the way it goes. So I'm going to talk about it. So we were at dinner with Ed over there and Henry the Problem, great guys. And so I think it was Ed. It's hard to remember because it was a half an hour ago. I think it was Ed said, so what step are you on? And immediately Henry said he's on step 6. I said, I'm always on step 6. So I'm going to throw in a pinch. I'll throw in a pinch of 8 and 9 or something, so you won't feel gypped. But why is step 6 so important to me? You know, I have. Look, here's the deal. I'm not any better than anybody here. I just happen to be around longer than a lot of people, so I've suffered a lot of repeated humiliations, the final question about self-sufficiency. So anything you hear from me that sounds crazy or stupid or you don't like, just let me tell you that I'm a product of working the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's a possibility that even though you think I'm saying crazy shit, don't make too much fun of me because you don't know where you're going to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You know, you may be standing up saying the same thing I'm saying from a different vantage point, because I have a different vantage point. I have an interesting sort of vantage point. The interesting thing about having time is, so I've got I'm in my 44th year. So you know what that means? Think about what that means. What that means, I have more time than Bill Wilson than the last time he wrote when he was like 31 when he wrote you know, when did they do that conference of group stuff? When Bill had 15 years. Everybody else had less than 15 years. Let me tell you what that means, and I'll try to explain to you what the deal is, and maybe you'll get something out of this or not, because you're free to disregard the whole bit. Really, it won't bother me. What it means is that when I had 20 years sobriety, when I celebrated 20 years sobriety, no, I'm sorry, when I celebrated 24 years sobriety, you know, how many people have 24 years or less here? Or less. Okay, so let me tell you what that means. When I had 24 years or less sobriety, that was over 20 years ago. Think about that. That was over 20 years ago. There's a lot of people, if you're like me, when I had 3 years or 4 years or 5 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, I would say, when I first came out, I'd say, man, if I could only get 5 years, man, I'd be like a superstar, you know? And then it's, oh man, if I get 10 years, if I get double digits, double digits, you know, double digits, what's that like, that double digit? That's gotta be basically it. No more problems. Then I had 10 years. And then I said, man, I wonder what it's like to have, because back then, maybe even here, if you had 20 years, that's like almost like old timer. It's really not, but you know, you sort of think it's like a mini, it's like a mini old timer. So 20 years, that sounds like a lot. So I said, man, if I can only get 20 years sobriety, then I had 20 years. Then your sponsors are the guys with like 30 and 35 years, you know what I mean? And you say, man, if I can only have 30 years, and you get 30 years, I go. So, and there's a reason why a guy with 20 years chooses a guy with 30 years. There's a reason why a guy with 30 years chooses a guy who has 40 or 50 years. Because, I don't know how you work, but I always hang out with people who have what I want. So when I had 10 years, I hung out with a guy who had 15 or 20 years. When I had 20 years, I hung out with a guy who had 30 and 35 and 40, and you know, that's the deal. And now, I'm in my 44th year and everybody else is dead. They're all dead. All I got is you guys. You're the best I can do. I have a good sponsor. His name's Dion. Every once in a while we talk. You know, I want to check to see whether you're still alive because I don't want to have to get another sponsor. I have sponsees that are 30, 35 years. They call me up once every 6 months. I thought I'd call up to see how you're doing. I said, oh, you're worried you don't want to have to get another sponsor, huh? You want to make sure I'm still alive. And I understand what you're doing. So why is the 6th step? Why am I always? I'm going to tell a little late tonight thing. I got to do that. So, why is I find it because when you're around for time, you know what you see? You see a lot of people drink. You see a lot of people drink. You see a lot of people with 10 years drink, a lot of people with 5 months drink. You go see a lot of people with 1 year drink. You see a lot of people with 15 years. You see people with 20 years drink. You see people with 30 years drink. You see a lot of people drink. And you see a lot of people drink who have done a 4th step. Do you hear me? You see a lot of people drink who have done a 4th step. I see a lot of people drink that have done a 5th step. I know the book said, let me just tell you the truth on the ground. And this doesn't conflict with the big book. The big book says, why do we do the 5th step? Because if you don't do it, you might drink, and that's true. But guess what? Doing the 5th step doesn't guarantee you're not going to drink. I see a lot of people drink at 5 years, at 10 years, at 15 years, at 20 years, at 30 years. I see a lot of people have 30 and 40 years that aren't drinking, but they're miserable and they're lonely. And almost everybody I see that drinks that has substantial time, whatever you call substantial time enough so they got time to basically do the steps and everything like that. Now, almost everybody I see who drinks, I know you have people that tell you the reason people drink is because they don't go to meetings or they stop going to meetings. Well, it may be true that a lot of people drink because they stop going to meetings, but the real question is why do they stop going to meetings? And I can tell you this, I'm just going to throw this out, and it may be wrong. I'll bet in A there's more people that drink that go to meetings than people that go to drink that don't go to meetings. I don't know for the fact. I'm just saying shit just to bother you. Just so that you'll think about that, because when I'm here, I see a lot of people. I see a few people say I drank because I stopped going to meetings. You hear that stuff, so you think that's the truth. But I see a lot of people that drink while they're going, after they go into meetings, have a sponsor and all that. I see a lot of people that drink who've done the 8th step. I see a lot of people drink who've done the 9th step. As a matter of fact, the truth is, I think most people do the 8th step and the 9th step during the first year or two, first 18 months. And a lot of people do that stuff, do the steps as they drink. But I'll tell you what I don't see. I don't see anybody who's seriously doing 6 and 7 and never drinking again. What do you think of that? I'm just telling you the truth. Whenever I'm with somebody who's taking 6 and 7 seriously, they've got permanent sobriety. Now, you can say that's bullshit, there's no such thing, you can call me, I don't care. What do I care? I'm laughing all the way to the bank. I don't care whether you like me or not, or you believe me or not. Listen, at least I can walk out of here, I told them the truth, they can see I'm saying full of shit. It's not gonna bother me, A lot of people don't like me, it's okay. If you're people that not gonna secure your lead, you don't want to worry about what people are thinking about you. You don't want to do that deal. That's a terrible bunch. That's what 8 and 9 is to a certain extent about. Not walking around with guilt and all that sort of stuff and feeling like a piece of shit. That's all that stuff where you're driving in a car. That line I say you're driving in the car and you got 6 years or 10 years. And all of a sudden, you hear this voice say you're an asshole. You got to kill yourself. All that self-talk, self-deprecation. It all comes from sort of 8 and 9 and some other stuff. But the truth of the matter is, whenever I had 3 people, I want you to imagine my life, if you can imagine my life. At 7 a.m. in the morning, I go to a meeting, on Zoom, great meeting with great people, about 40, 50 people called the Serenity Group. Anybody who wants my email, I'll put you on the email list, and you go to that meeting. It's a great meeting. At 12 o'clock, I go a Men Fully to live meeting, which is like a Christian sort of 12-step thing with just men from all over the world. And then at 4 o'clock, I go to my home group, which is South Dixie, and then Friday nights, I do that every day. And Friday nights, we have an Alive Again meeting, which is 2 hours long at 7 o'clock. And then on Saturday, we have a workshop from 9:45 till around 12:30 or 1 o'clock. It's around 3 hours long. We get about 90 people at that deal. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you talk about drastic, you talk about crazy, it's crazy stuff. But, you know, the thing is, people can do the steps till the cows come home and still drink. And yeah, 10 step, you can, it's true, and nothing so ensures sobriety, whatever that is. We can talk about sobriety, than intensive work with alcoholics. I think to a great extent, you know, Bill Wilson said in the book, this is the line in the book, this is the line, it's in the book. Many times in my first 18 months, I felt waves of self-pity. It almost drove me back to drink. I find when I take myself up and go to the hospital, I talk to a new man there. I was amazingly lifted up on my feet. It's a design for living that works. It is, and it's true. And I've done it a gazillion times. And if you go down and you talk to somebody, you try to help somebody else, you won't drink. But the next day, you'll feel like blowing your brains out. I mean, I know what you want. I know it's not a permanent, it won't give you necessarily the joy of living permanent. It won't rocket you into the fourth dimension of existence. We have this line in the book that says you will be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. Does anybody know what the fourth dimension of existence is? Let me tell you the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is here today and gone tomorrow. Joy never leaves. Joy never leaves. Life of joy. You ever run into anybody here that's living a life of joy, you can sense it, you'll see it. You know, I know a lot of people that are dying of cancer that they have joy, you'll never hear them complain. And then I know some people that have no problems at all except small shit, and all they'll do is complain to you. That's the difference between joy and happiness. Is like when you get the money, you get laid, you know, something like that, you're happy. You get the car, you get the job, you know, that's happiness. And then you go down the tubes when, you know, the gal won't talk to you, you lose the car. That's the life of happiness. Joy is feeling safe, secure, and grateful without the car, without the girl, without the guy, without the romance, without anything, because you don't need anything to have joy. And you know that rocket ship ride in the fourth dimension? It just says you only need two things. Only two things. It's called the Great Fact. Check on it. Check me up on it. Check the book on it. It says you only need two things. Number one, God's got to be the central fact of your life. And number two, you've got to be convinced without doubt that he lives in your heart and mind in a way which is deep miraculous. Two things. God's number one, the most important thing in your life. And number two, he's living with you and you have no doubt about it. It doesn't say, and intensive work with alcohol. That's not there. That's what will keep you sober while you're wanting to blow your brains out. When you lose the car and you lose the girl and you want to die and you want to kill yourself, you take yourself down to the hospital, you talk to a new man there, you're amazingly lifted up on your feet, and you get to be sober one day at a time until the girl leaves again. You know what I mean? You're still in bondage to the world. You know, so none of those steps, they'll keep you physically sober for a while, but you understand something about this. Alcoholics drink because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Now listen, because this is all big book stuff. You know, you can write New York and they'll say, yeah, well, that's in the big book. Here's the reason. Because if you're an alcoholic, you're restless, irritable, and discontented. And you can add, I think you can add stuff there. I think they say restless, but I think you can add angry, bored, angry, bored. You could add lonely, I think. You could add, all sorts of scared, afraid. You could add a lot of stuff. Let's just stick with they are restless, irritable, and discontented. Unless they can get that's the way we are. You ready? Sober. That's sober. If you're sober, that's the way you are. You don't know you're that way. Because since you were a sperm or a unicelled animal, You know, you've always felt that way. So you don't know there's any other way of feeling. If I told you there was another way of feeling, you'd say, well, that's too good to be true. Because alcoholics say that. Alcoholics say stuff, well, that's too good to be true. You know, if it sounds good, it's not true. If it's bad, oh, that sounds bad, that's gotta be correct. You know what I mean? That's the way we are. Oh, that's shit. That's no doubt that's the truth, you know? Oh, that's too good to be true. But here's the deal. So, if ever since you were 6 years old, I mean, alcoholism isn't like a virus. It isn't like a virus, you know, you catch it at 6 and now you got it. You've had it all your life. It's in your mind, not your body. So that means since you were 3 years old, you've been restless, irritable, discontented. They just thought it was like you were rambunctious or something, or, you know, you ran around or whatever it is, you know. Sometimes people call alcoholics childish. They have childish emotions, you know, because they act like children. They act like 2-year-olds, you know, angry 2-year-olds. So I've been an alcoholic ever since I've been a child, but I didn't know it because I've never felt anything. If alcoholism is being restless, irritable, discontented, you know, scared, frightened, lonely, feeling ill at ease, or whatever the heck it is, you know, it is. Whatever you call alcoholism, I know it when I see it. You know, sometimes I can shake somebody's hand and say, man, that guy's definitely an alcoholic, you know. I can just, you know, I hear the phrase, if I'm somewhere and I hear the phrase, why is this shit always happening to me? I say, that guy's an alcoholic. I don't care whether he drinks or not, I know he's an alcoholic. If he doesn't drink, I feel sorry for him. He's never going to make it into AA, but he's an alcoholic, okay? If I hear somebody say, they don't know who they're screwing with, I say, man, alcoholic, no question about it. We have our own language, we have our own thinking, way of thinking, you know, that kind of stuff, you know? So alcoholism is a disease that centers in your mind. It's not the drinking. The drinking is not the disease. It's not, the big book says the drinking is only the symptom of the disease. The disease centers in your mind, not your body. The disease is the fact that ever since you were 5, you've been restless, even before that, but who knows what's going on. You were restless, irritable, discontented. Before you took your first drink. Why do you drink? Why do you keep on drinking? Because, you know, we can go through the chemical addiction, craving stuff, but the truth is you crave a lot of things. It says God will show you how to create the fellowship. You crave fellowship. You crave fellowship. You crave people liking you. You crave people caring about you. You hate people rejecting you. You can crave a lot of things, you know, that you have to have. But here's the thing, if you're an alcoholic, you're restless, irritable, discontented, up until you take your first drink. You take the drink. We drink because that fixes that stuff. Alcoholics drink because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Somebody likes the effects produced by heroin, drug addicts, okay? But it's the same mechanism. We drink because it gives us a certain feeling. It gets rid of the other feelings until it turns on us, you know? As also throw the crap that happens to us. So we hit bottom, hopefully. Not everybody who comes in AA has hit bottom. Why all this insistence on hitting bottom? Because nobody's going to do this stuff unless they think their lives depend upon it. You know? Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, what I'm about to say, but I'll just say it. So why do people drink? Because they drank because it could be because they haven't hit bottom. I don't know. But I think what happened with me, and I'm the only one I can talk about, is I absolutely hit bottom with alcohol. What I mean by that is, I was absolutely convinced that I was powerless over alcohol. Powerless over alcohol, and my life was on management. As a matter of fact, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I think the main thing in AA is, I don't have the book in front of me, I'm trying to, on the one hand it says that we're convinced, we admitted that we're does the first step, remind me of, because you know, does the first step, we admit that we're powerless over alcohol? No, I figured it out, but thanks anyway. Is the first step say that we admit we're powerless over alcohol and our life is unmanageable? There's where the problem is. I can't help somebody. I don't deal at that deal. I mean, I can. 12-step people. I know what to do with the alcohol. I know how to talk to somebody that way and to give a drunk log and everything like that, but that's not the people I deal with. Because even though the book says we admit we're powerless over alcohol, what it also says in chapter 5, tell me if I'm wrong, is there's one who has all power. Does it say that? There's one who has all power?
Yeah.
And that one is God, and you find him now? Isn't that what it says? It doesn't say there is one who has all power over alcohol. It says there's one that has all power. And that one is God, may you find him now. Because if God only has power over alcohol, then what are you going to do when you get sober and you still have alcoholism? Because now you're sober, but now you're back to 6 years old. Now you're back to square one. Now you're back to the disease that centers in your mind rather than your body. Now you're back to being restless, irritable, and discontented. So here's the deal. I get a call. This one I get a call before 6 o'clock in the morning. At 5:30, I got a call from somebody who was sober, who was, dying. And then at 7:30, I got another call, and then I got another call, like before 12 o'clock. I'm dealing with 3 crazies, and all of them are sober. One of them had drank, and all of them are sober. And guess what? Their problem was. Guess what their problem wasn't? It wasn't alcohol. It wasn't alcohol. Can you believe that? That's my life. Every day I get a call. I get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 calls. I mean, you may not believe this, and I love it. In one sense, I like it because I need to do that. I need to be working. I need to be giving away. I need to be helping people because I know that's what the Lord wants me to do, and I want to do it, and I'm grateful to be able to do it. But I rarely, if ever, get a call from somebody who has a drinking problem. I mean, there's too many detoxes and other things that I hand back. I get calls from people that I got 10 years and I feel like killing myself, And every time I get a call from those people, Sandy Beach used to say, every problem has to do with disconnection with God. Every solution is connection with God. And every time I get a call with somebody who's got time, and these are people who have done the 3rd step, they've done the 1st step, they've done the 8th step, the 9th step, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, sure, I say you have to know the rudimentary things. You have to say, and I think one of the guys I even said, well, you need to pick up the phone and say you're sorry. I did that just the other day with somebody. I said, we were sitting at lunch and they were upset about something, they were pissed off and everything like that. I said, listen, let me tell you something. The reason you're upset and why you can't let it go is you need to actually tell them you're sorry. I said, you need to tell them you're sorry, you're wrong. And I said, wait a second, let me get him on the phone. I got him on the phone. And I said, I'm with so-and-so. He wants to say, he wants to talk. He says, I'm sorry, I was wrong and everything like that. I put the phone away. I said, how do you feel now? He says, I feel okay. I mean, sometimes it's so obvious that you have to do 8 and 9. You got to do these things. It's important. But most of the people that have a problem that's going on in their life and they're unsteady in their sobriety, but they're not drinking. They can pick up a 10-year medallion. The problem is not the 8th step or the 9th step or the 10th. These are rudimentary steps. These are designed for living that works. You do them and you'll live and you'll be able to not drink and not destroy yourself. But if you want to get that rocket ship ride, it's not so much those rudimentary steps, what I found. At least I found this in my own life, because even up to 20 years, 24 years, and I'm not saying I got it all together now. Don't everybody says, well, Russell says he's perfect. That's not true. But up until around 16, 17, 19, 20 years or something like that, I still suffered from, anxiety, fear, worry what people thought about me, all that sort of stuff, on a routine basis, I just handled it better and I looked better about doing it or something like that, but I still suffer from that stuff. But it wasn't until I started really getting serious about step 6, the 6, where the people that call me up have a problem on the level of God, the God level. And so that's why I talk about it all the time. That's why I talk about it all the time. And let me tell you one of the reasons. Let me just give you a reason. I'm just throwing some stuff out there that you may not ever hear at meetings. Just some stuff that you say, oh, I never thought of it that way. My sponsor used to say to me, the problem with alcoholics is they get too well too fast. I'm not totally sure what that meant, but I mean, I'm sure now what that means because I see it in my own life. I see the guys that I understand now what that means. I understand it at a deeper level. They get too well. Well, you understand it. The level I used to understand it at is these guys would come in, they get their wife back, their girlfriend back. You know, I say guys, it's also girls, but I mean, I don't sponsor girls, so I'm sure the same mechanism. They get everything back, they get the car back, you know, and they get the car back, they get the gal back, they get the guy back, they get the job back, they get the members of society. They're handing them yellow chips and green chips and white chips and purple chips and medallions, and they have a birthday party for them, and they're going to meetings, and they're secretary of the group, and they're sponsoring people, and they're doing all this stuff. You understand what I'm saying? It's all wonderful. When I came to AA, I knew I was powerless over alcohol. I knew I was powerless over alcohol. My name's Russell. I'm an alcoholic. I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm powerless over alcohol. But in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't powerless. Now let me try to explain it to you this way. I had a car. I used to get in my car and drive up here or to the 101 Club. I used to drive 50 miles. I'd make a decision. I'm going to the 101 Club. I'm going to the hospital. I'm going to work with this guy. And I would drive all over and do these things. And I'd go to work and I'd earn money. And I had a wife and I'd go out with friends and everything like that, and I'd sponsor people. Let me tell you something. I don't know how to explain this to you. It's easy to feel powerless, I guess, over your life. If you're on the street and you're drunk and you can't stop drinking, you know, it's like you just know it's over. You surrender. I give up. Who am I kidding? But when you own a car and you can drive at 80 miles per hour up here, you know what I mean? It's hard to think that you don't have any power because everything around you in your world says you're powerful. You got all this. I know I'm powerless over alcohol, but man, I can drive that car 80 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour. I can buy things, I can own things. Everything in my life tells me I have power. And let me tell you what that does to somebody like me. Maybe just human beings, maybe it's not just alcoholics. What it does is that when I have 10 years or 5 years and they're handing me medallions and coming up to me and saying, hey Russ, you did a great first step, whatever the hell they're saying to me, that kind of shit. Deep down inside of me, underneath all the bullshit and everything, in a spot that I don't see, my subconscious or something, what I really think, I don't think I'm sober because of God. I don't think I'm sober. I think I'm sober because I'm doing all this shit. I think I'm sober because of me. I don't really feel powerless. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know how to quote the big book. I'll tell you, oh, I'm powerless. Of course, there's a God. You know, grace of God, and I'll say all the right stuff. You know, but deep down inside, I'm thinking that really the reason I'm sober is because look at all these people I sponsor and look at these meetings I go to and look at what I'm doing. I think I'm sober. It really doesn't have much to do with God as it does with working the program. That's how Bill Wilson felt at 20 years. And that's why he started taking LSD. Because the program he was doing, nobody was doing the program better than Bill Wilson. So explain to me why he was taking LSD to feel better. I'm not putting Bill Wilson down. As a matter of fact, he admitted this. Everybody knew about it. He wrote an essay called The Next Frontier. And he said, I got it all wrong. This is Bill Wilson. I got it all wrong. I made a mistake. I was worshiping AA, my work in AA, everything else except for God. You know, when you're running around and doing all this powerful stuff and all this stuff and the pattern you're collecting and you're sober and you're not drinking, You think you're doing great and you're sober because of what you're doing, and then you, without even knowing it, you realize that the God of your understanding is you. That you're the God of your understanding, because who knows you better than you? You know? And I get these people that call me up, and there's like basically three, there's probably more types of people. One person will call me up and start talking to me about his problems. I can't shut him up. He'll filibuster for 30 minutes about his problem. The dog died, and then my wife said this, my wife said that. If I try to get an edge, and he doesn't want to, I start listening, because I always give a person the benefit of the doubt that they're actually asking for help, that they feel powerless and they want help, and they really want to listen. They don't want to listen. What they want to do is they just want to vomit all over me. Because why should they listen? Because they already, as they're vomiting on me, they'll say, and I know what the problem is. The problem is, I think this, or I can't, God forgives me, but I can't forgive myself, or the problem is this, or the problem is that. Why would he listen to me when he already knows the answers? You know what I mean? He's not interested in what I have to say. And a lot of that is about, if you tell somebody, you call them up and you vomit on them because you want attention or something like that. And if you tell them you know what the answer is, then you protect yourself from him telling you that you need to do something you don't want to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you tell them, this is all the problems, this is what I have, and I know this is the reason why, and I know I have to do this, that, and the other thing, then it protects them from you saying, you need to do this. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't really want to hear what you have to say. And then there are other people that call up, and they'll listen to you, and they'll say, no, you don't understand. Because they're not interested either. And then you'll have a guy who says, look, I have a problem. They'll sort of voice it maybe in a minute or so, and I don't know what the answer is, and I'll say, can I make a suggestion? And then I can talk to that person. Because you can't help anybody unless they need help, want help, and ask for help. And then shut the hell up. You understand? That's why I use that thing. I've told you what I use with responses. I give it to you. When somebody calls you up and they ask you a question, because you think, because alcoholics are great manipulators, they'll drive you nuts. You'll get on the phone with an alcoholic who has a problem, and after 30 minutes of talking to them, you'll walk away and you'll feel guilty and crappy, and they're okay. They just chucked an H-bomb on you, and you'll feel like want to drink. Okay? So this is how you do this. You say, okay, I understand what your problem is. He says, listen, I got 10 years. You got 6 months. Whose brain do you want to use on this? I need to know the answer to that. And then some will answer right away, but some will think about it. And he says, 10 years, I think I'll use your brain. He says, okay, great. Then you can talk to them. Because when they interrupt you and say, I think, you say, whoa, wait a second. The rules of this conversation is we're not using your brain because you're fucking crazy. and and I know you're crazy because I used to be crazy like you. And what if your craziness is fucking contagious? What if I walk out of here and I'm not crazy anymore like you? And what if I walk out of here and you're so crazy and I catch it? That could be harmful to me. So I thought we agreed we were going to use my brain. Because my brain says your only problem is this. And I only know one step. It's also I combine them in a sense too, that says this is the step that separates the men from the boys. Now I'm not quite completely sure, and I'm maybe this is the way it works, and I'm not doubting it because it worked for me in the long run. Why the 6th step and the 7th step comes before 8 and 9. There's probably a reason for it. I don't know. There's probably a reason. Personally, I think that's like the top 2 steps. I know one thing. Those are the steps you really have to eventually get right if you want permanent sobriety. I mean, I'll tell you what. You can do you can be 3 months sober and do an 8th step. You can be a year sober and do an 8th step. Man, I'll tell you, I wasn't really doing the 6th step until I was in like 15 years. So, I mean, the implications. The implications that the 6th step is the one that separates you out from everybody else. The implication is that the man who is doing the sixth step is trying to grow in the image and likeness of their creator, of their God, grow in his image and likeness, which means you've got to know what his image is, who he is, what he is, have it fixed in your mind, what you're walking towards. You've got an image of God that you're walking towards, and it ain't you. And more than anything else, your whole life is about growing in his image and likeness and getting on your knees and say, God, remove every defect I have so I can walk in the steps you want. The idea that that's a step in a sea of meetings where they say, don't talk about that shit, you're killing newcomers. This ain't exactly World Heals Anonymous. I hang around hundreds and hundreds of people that say, you do your program, I do my program, your program. You go to a meeting that lasts 1 hour, nobody talks about God, and the one guy talks about God and says, man, you really talk about God too much. In a book where all it does is mention God, and the reason why nobody gets involved in the sixth and seventh step is nobody talks about the sixth and seventh step. You can go to a meeting, somebody will talk about the sixth step, and they'll talk about driving the speed limit. They'll talk about driving the speed limit. Maybe somebody will have to explain that to me. There's nothing wrong with driving the speed limit. I don't know how much that has to do with making God the central factor of your life. But I know this, if driving the speed limit is the sixth step, it's a lot less confrontational and a lot easier than saying, why don't you get on your knees and ask God for help and humble yourself to God. It's a lot easier. I would rather do the speed limit thing than the God thing for most alcoholics. So that's why I talk about the sixth step all the time, because that's the step that separates the ones who are going to stay sober from the ones who aren't going to stay sober. When I hear somebody call me up with 5 years and they have 20,000 thoughts going, they can't vomit fast enough. There are problems out there, and then they go to this problem, and then this, and another thing, and then this problem, and you can't even get a word in because you finally stop them if you're lucky and say, listen, none of that is a problem. None of those are problems. They're problems to you because you're crazy and you're upset. Let me tell you something. Every problem you have, you know the money problem? You know how they're taking away your credit cards? You know the wife problem? You know how she wants to divorce her? You know the jail problem? You know all those problems? 80% of the people in the United States of America have the same problems, and they don't talk and act like you. I'm going to tell you, there are people in AA that have terminal cancer, and they don't complain about it. You know what your problem is? Is you're crazy. And you know why you're crazy? Because you're scared, and you're selfish, and you're self-centered, and you think you're sober, and you're doing AA. It's because you're doing every step of the 6 and 7. You're doing every step like 6 or 7. The God steps. The real, somebody said, well, you're going to do the third step. No. Third step is easy. Third step is not the God step. You guys think the third step is the God step? You know what the third step is? You get down on your knees and you say the third step prayer. Then you get up and you're done with the third step. It's true. That's the third step. You get down on your knees one time, you say the third step prayer, it says, we have now completed the third step. Good luck for the next 25 years. Good luck. That's different than there's a line in the book, there will come a time in every person's life, every alcoholic's life, will have no defense against the first drink. Did you know that? Its defense must come from God, from a higher power. Has anybody ever heard that? Now I'm going to give you a little hint. You know it says there'll come a time in every alcoholic's life they'll have no defense against the first drink? You know when that time's going to be for you? You want to know when that time's going to be for you? It's right now. It's always now. Because you never know when that time's going to come. Because it doesn't come riding in on a black horse saying, I'm here. What happens is you just drink. Something happens. You don't know whether you're going to be alive 15 minutes from now. I don't know whether I'm going to be alive 15 minutes now. You have no idea what's going to happen. You're happy as a clam, and you go out there, and all of a sudden you run over a pedestrian by accident. He's running, and the next thing that happens, somebody calls you up and you ask Sally died. And then the IRS comes. You never know what's going to happen. forget, you can be sober and not have, you never know how your life is going to change from moment to moment to moment. You never know what's going to happen. You can be sober 6 years and all of a sudden, it's, on the 6th year in one day, you take a drink. You know what it says in the big book? It says this. I'm just talking about big book stuff. It says, oftentimes when you ask somebody who drank again, why he drank, he'll give you an explanation. And quite frankly, he'll give you an explanation which almost sounds plausible. You know, my Aunt Sally died, I lost all my money, I was fired from my job. But when you look at all the damage she's caused beforehand, it sounds like a crazy man talking. And the truth is, sad to say, is he has no idea why he drank, then you have an idea why he drank. Because that's the mental blindness, that's the delusion. The only thing, see, the problem is I'm not only powerless over alcohol, I'm powerless, let me tell you something. I'll go home, I have no idea what my wife's moods are going to be, or what she's going to say to me, but I know one thing, I got no power over that. I'm cutting up here and I'm talking, sometimes I talk at conventions and stuff. I have no idea whether you're going to like me or not like me or whatever it is. I have no power over that. I have no power over what's going to happen to my job, or what's going to happen to money, or what's going to happen to my health, or whether I'm going to have cancer, or what's going to happen. I have no power over my entire life. You know, I know this. This is what I know for sure. That when I was 20 years sober, I didn't talk like this. I didn't talk, even though I was talking about days, I didn't talk like this. I know that somewhere along the way, the fear was lifted. Somewhere along the way, the fear was lifted. Somewhere along the way, I stopped worrying about what people in AA were going to think about me, whether they're going to like me or not. Somewhere along the way, about the time I stopped worrying about whether you were going to like me, I stopped worrying about whether everybody was going to like me. Somewhere along the way, I stopped grabbing at those straws or trying to get... Somewhere along the way, I lost my bucket list. I stopped saying, if I only had this, I only had this, if I only had that, if I only had this. Somewhere along the way, I lost it. Just you know how one day you wake up, one day you can't stop drinking, and the next day you stop drinking and you don't even want to drink? You know how that happens? How about one day you're saying, if I only had a girl, if I could only this, if I only that. How about the next day you wake up and you don't want any of that and it's not important to you? How about one day you want people to like you, the next day you don't care whether they like you? You know, you just want to, one day you're focused on this, next day you're focused on God, you know? And you start realizing that you're living a life of joy and you feel great. And stuff happens to you. The doctor says you need to have a biopsy. We have signs you can't, this, and it doesn't bother you. Meanwhile, you're having a guy call you up, he's got a hangnail and he's going to commit suicide, you know? You know, I mean, all I know is that when that stuff started happening to me, you understand? When that stuff started happening to me, this is what I can tell you. When the really, really good stuff started happening to me, it coincided almost exactly when I started talking about God the way I talk to you about God. Now, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know whether I started focusing totally on God and not focusing on anything else and talking about God because I wasn't ashamed of God, and talking to everybody who would listen to me about God without worrying about what you think about me, and then all of a sudden the fear would leave. I know the book says we never apologize for God. All men of faith have courage. I have courage. Maybe I'm a man of faith. It says we never apologize for God. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate what he's done for us in our lives. At once we begin to outgrow fear. It doesn't say we do intensive work with alcoholics and we outgrow fear. It doesn't say we do a 4-step and we outgrow fear. It doesn't say we do a 5th step and we outgrow fear. It doesn't say we do anything, any steps and we outgrow fear. What it says in the big book, it says it's very simple. It says we never apologize for God or talk about God. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. Instead, they let him demonstrate. They demonstrate in their lives by their testimony what he would have them be. At once, they begin to outgrow fear. So here's the question you got to have, and that's the thing. And when you outgrow fear, you can do all the other steps. They're all good. I'm not saying they're bad. It's nice, whatever it is. But when you outgrow fear, then you're not calling up people at 7:30 in the morning saying my life is over. You're not worrying about whether people like you or not. You're not drinking, right? You're not drinking. You beat that thing in a sense you beat that because of God, okay? How would you like to beat the fear thing? I don't know, maybe you guys, you may have a different alcoholism than me. Maybe you have an your only problem is not drinking. Maybe you guys never get anxious. Maybe you guys never worry about anything. Maybe you guys don't have a million thoughts. Maybe you guys don't talk to yourself and say, I'm an asshole, I ought to kill myself. Maybe you guys don't have bad thoughts about yourself and other people. Maybe you guys are already rocking in the fourth dimension of existence. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong crowd here. I don't know. But I rarely get people coming up to me and says, I didn't understand the word you said. They usually say something like, you're talking about me. So I got 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I told you guys the story about my former wife, how I treated her so badly, coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning, how she finally kicked me out of the house, and then and I'd leave her there with a wife and a child. I never beat her, but I was selfish and self-centered, and she was a sweet gal. I've told you that. I've told a lot of you have heard that story. I'm not going to repeat it. And then before we got divorced, she said, let's go see a marriage counselor, because she believed, there's a saying, I don't know if you guys have ever been married or been to a marriage, they have this thing till death do us part. Now, you may find this hard to believe. Women believe that shit. I know we're just waiting for the party. You understand what I'm saying? And this is something you got to go through. But there are some women, one of them would be like my wife, who's at home right now watching novellas, romantic novellas, okay? She said, will you sit with me last night and watch this with me? She says, I promise you, it's not romantic. I said, it's not romantic? She said, no, it's not romantic. Said, okay, I'm going to sit with you because I love you and I'll watch it. And I watch it within the first 15 minutes. It's kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. It's unbelievable, But let me tell you something. I sat through 3 episodes. I can't take it anymore. Not one person has been killed. There's not been one karate fight. No bombs dropped. There's only so much a man can take. You know what I mean? But here's the deal. So my wife says, my first wife says to me, she says, let's go to a marriage counselor to try to patch this up. And that's when he asked my wife the 3 questions, how do you want to change Russell? Then he asked me, he says, how do you want to change your wife? And I said, I just want to date other women. You guys don't even get that. The women who are looking at me saying, this guy ought to be shot, they get it. You understand what I'm saying? They get it viscerally, okay? And me, it was just, I had a date that night. I wanted to blow up the whole thing so I wouldn't have to be married. I was just looking for a way of blowing it up, I made amends to that lady. I walked into a hospital room, and I had to walk, and she had cancer. And I walked into a hospital room, and I told her, I said, I just want you to know, when I did that, I was wrong. And I apologize to you. I was a crappy husband. I said the whole bit, who I was and what I was. And I said, I'm glad you divorced me, because if you hadn't divorced me then, I would have made your life so miserable. We wouldn't even be able to talk. And then she said to me, she said, I thought I was wrong. I thought I wasn't a good enough wife. Believe that shit. You never know what people are thinking. I said, no, you were perfect. I was the one who was sick. I was the sick bastard. I was the sick, she's passed on now. And she forgave me, and she's passed on. We had a relationship, and she got remarried. Everything, was all cool. I got to tell you something. To this day, there's this line in the book, the only line I disagree with in the book, there may be others. It says, we will not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. I don't want to shut the door on that. I don't want to shut the door on that because I want to remember in my mind, I can't even imagine what person I'd be if that didn't bother me. I mean, I regret what I did to my first life. To the day I die, I will regret, no matter what kind of amends you make, I'll never be able to, in a sense, make believe that didn't happen. There'll always be a scar. I regret what I did to my first wife and my son. How could you not do that? But I don't want to shut the door on it because I want to remember what I can become. I want to remember who I really am. I'm not the guy who's before you right now. I'm not, this isn't me, okay? You wouldn't want to know me. I'm the guy who said I want to die. This is who I am. I'm the guy without God in my life. I am the guy who says I want to date other women. That's who I am. That's who I am. That's who I am. I am the guy that only cares about himself. And it's important for me to know that because I have to understand why God is, as they say, the faith in God is the concrete that holds me to the foundation of God. Because I want to understand that drinking is the smallest part of this whole deal. Drinking happened for every one of you a while ago. For some of you 20 years, some of you 10 years. What's really the deal is what's going on in your mind right now. What's going on in your mind at 3 o'clock in the morning. What's going on in your mind every day. That's the real alcoholism that's running your life and causing your problems right now. And that goes on forever. And the only thing where you can get relief in that, the only thing, is God. Because you're powerless over anger. Because you're powerless over remorse, you're powerless over guilt, you're powerless over restlessness, you're powerless over so many things other than alcohol that can ruin your life and your relationships. And so I have to focus on that and focus on God and walk towards Him down that road with the fellowship of the Spirit. And what I mean by that, with other people who believe in God and want to believe like God with me, like I believe. I got to walk with them because that's the only way I can get the strength and dispel the doubt. I can't walk with the people that are saying, I don't want to hear about the God thing. I mean, I could come here and I could talk about it, but I'm not going to buddy up with them and sit there and listen to that crap, okay? Because it'll affect me, because I'm an alcoholic. I can't sit with mockers or doubters or people that piss on this thing or think it's no big deal, because they're the ones that are going to drink. And if they don't drink, they're the ones who are going to be miserable. I am very careful about who I hang out with. You know, who I hang out with. Now, I'll go anywhere to the ends of the world, the most sordid places. But in the middle of the sordid places, I'm going to talk about God. I'm going to talk about God just like I'm talking about Him right here. You know, I'm supposed to do the 8th step. I'm going to do what I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to do what the Lord puts in my heart. That's what I'm going to do. If you want to walk out here and say, I didn't get anything because I thought I was going to get the 8th step, well, then it's your problem. It's not my problem. I don't have a problem. You know? I mean, bottom line, some people are going to walk out here and say, man, I never heard any of that stuff or even thought about stuff like that. Some people are going to go out of here and say, well, you didn't tell me anything about the 8th step. You know? Whatever. It's okay. I'm fine. Thank you very much.